All right, I am almost finished with my line art on my spot illustration here. My creature of everyday circumstance. I'm just going to fix this tail here. I was trying something, but I just got to make that work a little bit better. And then I'm just going to move the stars where I want them. So how can I fix this? I'm on the pencil tool. I hold down Command to get to my last selection tool, which is the small selection tool, which I like. And then I can see the anchor points. If I can see the anchor points, then I can start on the path and redraw it and end on the path. Right. Then I'm going to do it on the inside too. I have to click it with the selection tool first. And here I'm just going to kind of thin the line a little bit. This is one reason I don't like using technical lines unless I'm working on technical animation where I'm required to. Because with gestural lines, with a little bit of varied thickness, you can get away with a lot of this subtlety. And then I want to do the inside of this one. All right. Whoops. And I'm being a little too picky. There we go. And then just finished with this. Now, one thing that takes some getting used to in Illustrator, as you're kind of correcting, when you hit Command+ to zoom in, it will automatically go to the center of whatever thing is selected. So even though I want to zoom in here, because this line goes all the way around, when I hit Command+, it immediately goes towards the middle of that mass. So then I have to hold down spacebar and get over to where I want, right? And then, for those of you who are really shaky, don't forget that there's also the smooth tool. So if I find a place with a lot of anchor points, I can always use the smooth tool as well. And if it's not showing up where you want it, you can always click on these three dots, find it. It looks like a blending stump. And what that does is average out the anchor points. So you don't need to start on the path or end on the path. It will automatically kind of average them just for the anchor points that are showing. But I don't want to use it for a little bump like that, because by the time it smooths out that bump, it will average out all of these points on that path to be less accurate than I want them to be. So for here, I want to be more targeted, and I just want to start on the path and end on the path with the pencil tool. Try to smooth it out, and then I can use the smooth tool to average it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that inking on the body of the creature. Now I'm going to play with these stars. So remember, once you have a vector, these paths are always yours to command. So I'm going to select that star, then I'm going to use the large selection tool, and I'm going to move it into place. And I'm kind of squinting, and then I'm going to use the small selection tool, click this one, use the large selection tool, whoops, not the inside, the whole thing. Another way to do the small selection tool is to drag boxes. So you get all of those anchor points, and then the large selection tool will allow me to transform it, will allow me to shrink it, stretch it, warp it, bop it. All right. Again, draw with the box, large selection tool, rotate it. And then if I wanted to like flip it, get it to reflect horizontally, I could right click inside of it. It's a lot like transform, not exactly. And there is no warp function, but there is what's called the shear function, and that kind of helps. It's a little smaller. All right. So now I'm going to turn off, yeah, that works. I'm going to turn off my sketch layer, so I only have the vector line art. And I want to see if there's anything else I want to add, and maybe there is. Maybe I use the blob brush, and I can just do like little accents. I did some kind of bruising and smudge marks on the skull, little hash marks. See, I want it to be kind of fancier back here. I can do little kind of freckles on the flank, kind of My Little Pony style. Might be fun. Just kind of stalling, getting you guys where I want you. So then how do I correct that? I'll use the pencil tool. I'll click on the small selection tool because I need that. And then when I use the pencil tool, I hold down Option. It will automatically go to the last selection tool I used, which is the small selection tool when I'm doing edits. And then I'm just going to play with the shape of these, make them a little bit smoother, hold down Command. This is how you use Adobe Illustrator. Some people, especially if I was doing really clean illustration, I would use the pen tool a lot for these shapes. But with digital inking, it's a lot more natural just to use a tablet and the blob brush and the pencil. And remember, each edge has an inside and an outside. So you can play with that variation in thickness. And just like the stars, maybe I want to select one of those freckles, use the large selection tool, and then make it bigger. I always hit return because I think of transform, but you don't need to hit return. You just need to click off of it. This one a little bigger. Rotate it a little. But when you do that, it obviously thickens the whole shape, right? So you might use the pencil to slim it down, starting on the path, ending on the path. And you can do that from the inside edge or the outside edge. Two different things. I've got a little heart. So nice. Okay. Now, what about inking techniques, which would be things like shading? So I've talked about full bleed last time. Full bleed is anything that gets filled in with black. I always like to leave a little bit of highlights coming through. But what if you want the illusion of kind of midtones? So for instance, I can smooth out this eye socket with the pencil tool. And you see there's that little gap. Of white in there. And of course, I can just use the blob brush to get rid of that, right? But I'll show you that kind of wood block technique. If I use the eraser and I have the eraser set to be pressure sensitive, not the angle, but the size, pressure sensitive, then when I erase, I can make it kind of jagged and weird. Right, like I'm cutting away from a wood block or a linoleum print. And so that would counter kind of nicely with how clean the outside lines are. Right. So that could be an interesting way to go. Maybe I just want a little bit of it, because I could always fill it with a dark color as well. Because that's how the eraser kind of makes marks. And then I can go back with the pencil tool and just clean up some of those edges. Whoops. I'm going to start on the path and end on the path. So I'm just going to clean up the top and bottom edge. Now there's a lot of little kind of shard shapes in there. There we go. So that can be interesting. And then what about here? This is kind of like a cross section. I can do it with just color, but I can also use the blob brush, and I can do a fixed size. So I'm going to do a 3-point fixed. So this is what's called a technical line. Means no matter how hard I press, it's always going to be the same width. And what I'm going to do is actually lock this layer, make a new layer on top, find an angle I like, and this is called linear hatching for those drawing students. And then I'm going to simply make a pattern of lines that are evenly thickened. Right? It's getting a little tight down there. Okay, now I can use my eraser. And because it's on a separate layer and the layer underneath it is locked, it will only affect the new thing I just did. And this is a way to get kind of a mid-tone just in your inking. So that's a linear hatching inking technique. And then for the bones here and the internal organs, that's just to show the muscle tone. I erase that out. And it makes it look like I'm erasing my original lines, but because they're locked, they'll pop right back up. Okay, so now, when I use the small selection tool, I can just clear out all of these. So though we are going to be adding color, this isn't meant to just work as black and white. It will look like a coloring book with just the line art. Color is going to finish it off. Color is pretty necessary. But you can use tonality even with just black inking. There's a little bit of weirdness right there that I'll fix on my line art. But all of this I can just select and delete. And then double click on the rotate to get it back. So what do you think? Does that help a little bit, or is it better without it? All right, so what if the lines were thinner? So here you see there's kind of a weird variation. This is what's great about vectors, is I can just take that line and I can move it and split the difference. Right. And then just erase it out where I don't want it. Oops. So how to make the lines thinner, how to make the lines thicker. Thicker is easier than thinner. So I'll show you how that works. Thinner is a little complicated, but yeah, this is a good way to show it. So if I wanted those lines to be thinner, which I'm not sure I do because I want this to be really graphic. But remember, I can also individually select them because they're vectors, and I can individually like rotate them with the large selection tool and move them. And I can individually thin them out too. I can kind of squeeze them towards each other by holding down Shift and Option, or just Option actually, and thin it, right? But what if I wanted to thin all of them? Well, they're all in their own layer. Everything else is locked, so it's pretty safe to try this. What I would do is select them all. This is pretty advanced.